Picture this. You got that text. After weeks, maybe months of silence, distance, mixed signals, and that particular kind of loneliness that only hits when you're technically not alone, they reached back out. Maybe it was a casual, "Hey, how are you?" that felt like anything but casual. Maybe it was an apology that came out of nowhere on a Tuesday night. Maybe they just showed up, softer, slower, more present than you'd seen them in a long time, and something in the air between you shifted. And now you're sitting there, feeling this complicated cocktail of relief and confusion and hope and fear all at the same time. Because part of you is thinking, don't trust this. This has happened before. And another part of you is thinking, but what if this time is different? And somewhere underneath all of that is the real question. The one you haven't said out loud to anyone. The one that's been living in the back of your chest since the moment they came back. What actually changed? Why now? What made them come back? And will they stay? Here's the truth nobody tells you. Avoidants don't come back by accident. They don't randomly soften. They don't just miss you in some vague, unexplained way and decide to reach out. There are specific, identifiable psychological reasons why an avoidant person returns. And understanding those reasons is the difference between repeating the same cycle all over again and actually breaking it. You're not here because you're desperate. You're here because you're done being confused. So, by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what's happening inside an avoidant's nervous system when they come back, what you did or didn't do that shifted something in them, and what it actually takes to create the kind of safety that makes a dismissive or fearful avoidant want to stay, not just return. Let's get into it. Section 2. The Mindset Reframe. Before we get into the specific reasons, I need to reframe something. Because if you walk into this conversation with the wrong mental model, none of what follows is going to land the way it needs to. Most people believe that when an avoidant comes back, it means they finally realized how much they love you. That distance made the heart grow fonder. That they just needed space and now they're ready. But here's the real truth beneath the surface. Avoidants don't come back because the love returned. The love never left. What left? What was always leaving, in slow increments long before the actual distance, was their sense of safety. See, here's the thing most people don't understand about avoidant attachment. It's not a personality flaw. It's not emotional immaturity. It's not them being broken or incapable of love. It is a nervous system that learned, very early, usually in childhood, that getting close to someone means eventually being overwhelmed, engulfed, or hurt. That needing someone is dangerous. That depending on a person makes you vulnerable in a way that feels genuinely threatening at the survival level. So when an avoidant pulls away, their brain isn't saying, "I don't love you." Their brain is saying, "I'm about to lose myself in this, and I don't know how to survive that." And when they come back, their nervous system is doing a very careful, very unconscious recalculation. It's scanning the environment and asking, is it safer now? Has something changed? Can I come close without it costing me everything? What looks like emotional unavailability is usually someone who has been protecting themselves since before they even understood what protection was. That changes how you see everything that follows. Section 3. The Main Body. 7 points, full 5-layer structure. Point 1. You stopped chasing, and that sent the loudest signal possible. Most couples fall into a chase dynamic without ever naming it. One person pulls back, the other person leans in harder, texts more, tries to fix the distance, gets louder in their need for reassurance, because the silence is unbearable, and doing something feels better than doing nothing. Here's the deeper emotional truth. When you pursue an avoidant, even with love, even with the best intentions, you're actually confirming their deepest fear. That closeness means losing control. That connection comes with pressure. Their nervous system reads your urgency not as love, but as threat. And what does a threatened nervous system do? It withdraws further. But the moment you stopped chasing, something completely unexpected happened inside them. The noise went quiet. And in that quiet, here's what a lot of avoidants experience. And this is the part nobody explains. They feel the loss for the first time without the pressure blocking it. When you were pursuing them, all they could feel was the need to escape the pursuit. But when you pulled back, when you gave them the space they always said they wanted, suddenly the space felt like absence, and absence felt like loss. Think about it this way. Not texts every morning, not long calls asking, "Are we okay?" Not reaching out one more time just to see, but instead, silence. Your silence. And your silence said something your words never could. I am not going to beg to be chosen. And when you do that, when you actually mean it, the walls between you come down in a way that no amount of chasing ever could have made happen. Point 2. You became emotionally unpredictable in the best way. Here's the part no one talks about. Most people, when they're falling for an avoidant, become incredibly predictable. Reliably available, reliably warm, reliably waiting. And while that sounds like love, and it is, it also removes something that is deeply important to the avoidance nervous system, the uncertainty that keeps them engaged. Avoidants are wired for the push and pull, not because they're toxic, but because their attachment style was literally formed in an environment where love was inconsistent and therefore interesting, and consistency felt suffocating rather than safe. The deeper psychological truth here is this. When you became less available, not as a game, but because you started genuinely investing in your own life, something shifted in how they perceived you. You stopped being someone they could take for granted. You stopped being the guaranteed person in the background. You became, in their nervous system's language, someone worth pursuing. She's not waiting anymore. That's the thought that starts moving through an avoidant when you step back into your own life. And I don't know how I feel about that, but I know I feel something. Compare these two versions. Version 1. You cancel your plans when they finally reach out. You're always there. You make yourself smaller to fit into the space they're willing to give you. Version 2. You have a life. You're genuinely busy. You're warm when they reach out, but you're not reorganizing your world around their availability anymore. Version 2 is not playing hard to get. That's what it looks like when someone has learned to love without losing themselves in the process. And that is what made them look twice. Point 3. You stopped making the relationship feel like a performance review. And this is the one most couples never figure out. Most people in relationships, especially when they can feel someone pulling away, unconsciously shift into evaluation mode. Every interaction becomes a test. Every response gets analyzed. Every date, every conversation, every text carries the unspoken weight of, "Are we okay? Are you still in this? How are we doing?" And for an avoidant, that emotional weight is suffocating, not because they don't care, but because their nervous system reads that undercurrent of evaluation as constant, low-grade threat, like they're always one wrong move away from disappointing someone they love. And people cannot relax into connection when they're bracing for judgment. Here's the truth beneath the surface. Avoidants don't flee love. They flee pressure. They flee the feeling that love comes with conditions, with performance metrics, with an emotional report card being graded in real time. What they're longing for, underneath all that withdrawal, is the exact same thing you're longing for. To just exist with someone and have that be enough. The contrast matters here. Compare. "You've been really distant lately. I feel like we never really connect anymore. Like you're always somewhere else. Can we talk about this?" Which, even though it's a totally valid feeling, lands on an avoidant nervous system like an alarm bell. Versus, "I had the strangest day. Come sit with me." Which asks for nothing except presence, offers warmth without agenda, and creates a moment of ease rather than evaluation. Her brain starts registering. This doesn't feel like a trap. This feels like a person I want to be around. And that's when your partner stops feeling like a problem to manage and starts feeling like a person to come home to. Point 4. You let them see you heal, and that shook something loose in them. Most couples, after a separation or a period of serious distance, spend that time either obsessing over the other person or performing happiness to make them jealous. And both of those things, as human as they are, send the same signal. You still own me. I'm still yours to have or not have. But here's what changes everything. When an avoidant watches you genuinely grow, not to make a point, not to perform thriving for their benefit, but because you actually started doing the real inner work, it does something to them they weren't prepared for. It disrupts the narrative their nervous system had been running. See, many avoidants unconsciously selected partners who needed them more than they needed the partner. That dynamic, where they're the one who has it more together, the one who could take or leave the relationship, is actually part of the comfort zone. The moment you no longer need them more than they need you. The entire emotional ecosystem shifts. Something in him is saying, "She's different. She's not the same person I was pulling away from. And I don't know what that means, but I want to find out." Not performing healing, not posting curated growth on social media, but actually going to therapy, taking the solo trip, rebuilding the friendships you let go, finding out who you are when you're not organized around someone else's emotional availability. That's not a technique for winning someone back. That's what it looks like when someone has done real work on themselves. And real work on yourself has a gravity that is impossible to fake. And when they come back into contact with that version of you, what moves through them is something they cannot explain away. I think I missed the wrong thing. I thought I missed the distance, but what I actually missed was her. That's the shift that turns a story about loss into one about becoming. Point 5. You stopped trying to fix their attachment style and finally felt safe. Here's the part no one talks about, and I mean no one. Most people who love an avoidant spend enormous amounts of time and energy trying to convince them that intimacy is safe, trying to explain attachment theory to them, gently pointing out their patterns, lovingly confronting their walls. And I get it. It comes from love. But here's the deeper truth. You cannot heal someone's nervous system by explaining it to them. You can only create conditions where their nervous system starts to experience something different. Think of it like this. Emotional safety in a relationship isn't built like a wall. It's built like scar tissue in reverse. It forms slowly over 100 small moments where the person you're closest to proves, not with words but with action, that being close won't cost you yourself. Every time you tried to fix, analyze, or educate your avoidant partner about their attachment style, their nervous system heard one thing. There is something wrong with you, and I need you to change. Even if that wasn't your intention, even if you were the gentlest, most patient version of yourself. But the moment you genuinely stopped needing them to be different, something shifted at a level below language. Compare, I've been reading about avoidant attachment, and I really think if you just tried to be more emotionally available, things could be so much better between us. Versus, being consistently warm, consistently boundaried, consistently yourself, without an agenda for who they need to become. One says, love here is conditional on your growth. The other says, you are safe here, exactly as you are. And also, I will not disappear into you. That combination, warmth without pressure, acceptance without self-abandonment, is the rarest thing an avoidant has ever felt. And when they feel it, something in them says, I didn't know it could feel like this. I want more of this. The walls come down, not because you convinced them, but because they finally stopped needing them. Point 6. They experienced enough real loss to finally override the fear. Honestly, this one is important, and it's the hardest one to hear. Most people want to believe that an avoidant came back because they had a beautiful realization about love and growth and emotional availability. And sometimes that's true. But here's what the psychology actually shows. For many avoidants, return doesn't happen until the pain of the loss finally outweighs the fear of the closeness. Avoidant attachment is, at its core, a survival strategy. And survival strategies don't shift until the cost of maintaining them becomes undeniable. As long as pulling back still felt like relief, as long as distance still felt like freedom, the nervous system had no reason to recalculate. But grief is a strange thing, and real absence is different from chosen distance. When the avoidant in your life is the one who created the distance, they are in control of the narrative. They can tell themselves a story. I needed this. I'm happier this way. This is what's right for me. But time has a way of wearing that story thin. Here's what nobody explains. The avoidance defense mechanism functions like a smoke detector. It cannot tell the difference between emotional engulfment and genuine connection. It sounds the alarm either way, but grief bypasses the alarm. Because grief isn't a threat to protect against, it's a truth that seeps in through the cracks. And somewhere in that quiet, in the absence of you, the thought they'd been avoiding finally arrived. I don't actually want this. Not a text more. Not another conversation about your patterns. Not another chance to chase. But just you. Living your life. Genuinely moving on. That is what finally made the loss feel real in a way that their own distance never could. And real loss is the one thing that can override a lifetime of self-protection. Point 7. You represented the one relationship that finally felt different. And here's what changes everything. Because this is the point everything else has been building toward. Most couples in this situation miss the forest for the trees. They focus on tactics. Did I do the right thing by pulling back? Did I heal enough? Did I give them enough space? But they miss the most important psychological truth of all. Avoidants don't come back to relationships. They come back to experiences. Specifically, they come back to the one relationship that broke the pattern. The one connection that felt categorically different from every close relationship they'd experienced before. Here's the deeper emotional reality. An avoidance internal working model, the blueprint their nervous system uses to predict what love will feel like, was built before they were old enough to choose it. It says, getting close means losing freedom. Being loved means being managed. Needing someone means getting hurt. And for most of their romantic history, that blueprint got confirmed over and over again. Not because their partners were bad people, but because the anxious avoidance cycle is magnetic and almost impossible to escape without consciousness on both sides. But you, at some point in this connection, offered them something that didn't confirm the blueprint. Maybe it was the way you respected their need for space without making it mean something. Maybe it was the way you held your own ground without punishing them for theirs. Maybe it was the way you were honest without being cruel, or warm without being consuming. She's not like the others, something in them finally registered. Not as a romantic cliché, but as a genuine nervous system recalibration. Being close to this person doesn't feel like losing myself, and I've never felt that before. Not a compromise, not a person who finally found the right manipulation strategy, but someone who became genuinely secure enough in themselves that their energy said, without words, I don't need you to stay, but I want you to. And I'm worth wanting to stay for. That is the shift that turns a cycle into a real love story. Section 4. The close and call to action. So here's what I want you to carry with you after this. This isn't a list of things to do to get an avoidant to come back. That's not what this was. What this was is a map of the kind of person you become when you stop outsourcing your emotional security to someone else's attachment wounds. Because here's what all 7 of those points have in common. They're not strategies. They're not moves in a game. They are all different expressions of the same underlying truth. That the moment you became genuinely secure, genuinely rooted in who you are, genuinely okay with or without them, you became the one person in their life whose presence didn't feel like a threat. And that is not a communication hack. That's not a psychology trick. That is just what emotionally mature love actually looks like in practice. When you internalize this, you stop reacting from fear and start responding from groundedness, and your partner will feel the difference before you've even said a word. Because nervous systems talk to each other long before mouths do, and a regulated, secure, genuinely self-possessed person is, to an avoidant, the most magnetic, the most safe, and the most worth returning to human being they have ever encountered. So if they came back, welcome that with open eyes, not just open arms. Ask the real questions. Watch for real change, not just real desire. And if they haven't come back yet, or if you're realizing that your own healing was never really about them coming back at all, then this work you're doing right now is the most important relationship investment you will ever make. Not because it gets them back, but because it builds the version of you that knows exactly what they deserve and refuses to accept anything less. If this hit something real for you, subscribe, drop a comment with the one point that landed the hardest, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Real intimacy doesn't start when you find the right person. It starts when you decide to become one.